Software Showcase. I am Mark Stedman, and we're coming to you today live from the campus of Wycliffe Associates in sunny Orlando, Florida. Joining me in the studio today, as always, is Glenn Oliver, our team's project manager and all-around great guy.
Oh, thank you, Mark. Great to be here.
Glenn, who have we got with us today?
Well, I think for the first time ever on camera, at least for the Software Showcase, we have Robert Kramer, who is our engineer and training specialist with POD, which stands for Print on Demand. See previous Software Showcases for exclusive details on that. But he's here to kind of talk about his recent experience with some of the benefits of our security training.
Yeah, Robert, welcome to the studio.
Thank you very much, Mark.
Great to have you here. Thank you in advance for volunteering to share your story of avoiding being taken in by scammers.
Voluntolding.
Yeah, being voluntold to do that. Thanks. Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about what happened?
Okay, so a couple of months ago, I was at home just doing regular WA business with POD, and of course, one of my tasks is I get lots of emails every day like everybody else does, and I had just ordered something via PayPal from China, which was a legitimate expense, and we oftentimes do buy things both personally and through the Wycliffe Associates from China. That's one of our major suppliers. So what was different about this particular purchase was that within a short time after I made this legitimate purchase, I got a notice from PayPal that I had been, another $900 charge had been put on my PayPal account.
That's
as
right.
An iPhone, which I did not order from China. So I was kind of suspicious, but I thought I would follow up with that and see about, of course, we have the know before training, and I'm very conscientious, having worked in cybersecurity in my previous job. I'm not a slough when it comes to understanding what some of the threat vectors are. I wasn't immediately suspicious of this, other than I knew I didn't order the iPhone, but I thought, well, okay, probably from my PayPal experience, my email's been compromised, and my PayPal's been, somebody's been trying to use that account to get themselves rich. So I looked at the email, and knowing from my know before training, I'm not going to click on the email. I'm going to first make sure that it is a legitimate, valid email. So you hover over the URL of the sender, and it was indeed a PayPal.com. So that's the first, the first thing I think I did right.
Yeah, you did. So what we've got on the screen here is your email, and it's sort of in 3 columns just because it was on a mobile device. So the original email was this one: Mignonette Makabali sent you a money request.
Yeah.
Yeah, for $900, which is a pretty substantial amount of money.
Right, I wasn't going to pay that if I didn't have to.
Right.
And it is a contingency request. I didn't realize, but anyone can really go to your PayPal account and ask for money. And then you have the option of denying it or accepting it. So, I mean, this is like a number of different platforms like Venmo or, I think there are many others that people like to use for transferring money between friends.
Yeah.
And
this is a great place to pause. If you get an email from one of the payment services, like you said, PayPal or
Zelle.
Venmo or Zelle, and it's requesting money, you don't have to say yes. And if it's not something you expect, you should not say yes. So, and if you look carefully at the email, it says you got a money request,
correct,
not a payment that happened. But sometimes you get an email and it says $900, and you think, oh my gosh, $900, and then you don't necessarily read the fine print, right?
Yeah. So I wasn't initially worried about it so much as I didn't want to see a whole bunch of other requests come through. Usually when you get one, sometimes they will send out an initial phishing attempt to see if it's a valid account. And then next thing you know, you're getting progressively more requests for bogus money.
And the reason it came from service@paypal.com is because they had sent a request to your PayPal.
It was a real request.
So this email was valid. It came from PayPal saying, hey, these guys are asking you for $900, go in here and you can either pay now, that's the button in the second middle column, or you can decline it in the bottom.
Right.
But they did something really tricky.
Really tricky, which I didn't initially notice, and that's part of the reason for this software showcase. And Mark's going to highlight it here.
I'm going to try. We're going to see if I can zoom it up a bit more. It doesn't look like it's going to zoom
up. It looks like there's like a PayPal phone number that I can call to deny the payment.
Down here in the bottom.
So again, from my know before training, the next thing I did is I am not going to call that number immediately. I'm going to go to the PayPal website and make sure that that's the valid phone number.
Yeah.
So that's what I did. I went to a different device, and I went into paypal.com, logged in with my username password, and bingo, there it is. The request was still there.
There's your $8.99 again.
At $8.99, so it was valid. It is actually showing up on my PayPal account, my PayPal statement. So I clicked on that, which you can't do here, but when I clicked on it, it actually pops up
This same little message from
the same message. That says if this is not valid, here's an 800 number
right.
that you can call to get this reversed. Well, lo and behold, that is not a PayPal number.
That's right.
And it took me a couple of minutes to realize that this is a phone number that's been entered by the spammer themselves. Well, I went ahead and called it.
Right.
Okay, my James Veach is going off in my mind here. I'm going to channel.
Before we get to the fun stuff, let's just let's draw attention here. It says note from Mignonette Macabali. That's whatever text the requester can put in there.
Right.
So they've gotten smart enough to realize, oh, again, people see $900, they kind of freak out a little bit, and they may just go ahead and take advantage of what's in that box and not realize, oh, the scammer typed that in. It looks like it's just part of the email.
Right.
And so that's what you're also watching for is, hey, that's a number, and in fact it's blue, which probably means you could have just tapped it and your phone would have just dialed it right out.
Yep. And not only is it in the email, it is on the website when you go to the website.
Because that same note, if this was a live page, we would click on that and you'd see the details of the transaction, including that note.
Which is requester inserted.
Yeah. So it's actually it's a pretty, I mean, it's a hard one to miss. Like, in other words, it's quite convincing. Yeah.
If you're aware of it, you can spot right away, yes, this is a note that's been entered by the requester.
Right.
However, if you're like me, you get 8 or 10 of these kinds of threats a day, right?
Yeah.
So you're normally just hitting delete, delete, delete. Well, this one, it made it past my initial filter. And if you do chain of analysis on risk, one of the things that makes these kinds of things dangerous is you get complacent, right? And so you see enough of these, sometimes you just, you didn't stop and really look through. I looked through the URL, I looked through the sender, but I didn't catch the word requester added note.
Right.
So as it turns out, places like PayPal and other Amazon oftentimes don't actually have 800 numbers. Or if they do, it's a form of some kind that, if you have a request to reverse a charge, you got to fill out paperwork. They will contact you via email.
Don't call us, we'll call you.
Yep.
Yeah, that's exactly correct. Maybe PayPal does have a number, but I guarantee you that's not it.
It's not it.
So what happened when you called in?
So I called that number. I got a friendly first ring answer.
I bet you did.
So there was my second kind of red flag, because if I really called Amazon or whoever trying to get through for a legitimate reason, I'm usually put on hold for a while. But I got through, and it was a Middle Eastern, not unusual for a help desk, right? I mean, that's kind of typical.
Customer service lines are often people overseas. So
went through all this stuff, and the first thing they wanted me to do was they were going to send me a code, a 6-digit code.
Oh, I bet.
Yep, and I was supposed to let them know what that is, and that would confirm to them that I was Robert Kramer. All right, well, of course, you see where this is going. The 6-digit code is them requesting a password change on my PayPal account.
Correct.
Oof.
Okay?
Yeah.
So I see it, and it says, do not share this code with anybody.
Yeah. In fact, let's pause right here. If you call any customer service number, ever, and they tell you, we're going to text you a 6-digit code, hang up.
Exactly.
There's basically no reason that should ever happen.
Right.
That is the easiest way to reset somebody's password. So I want people to hear this. They didn't have Robert's password. They didn't need Robert's password. What they did is they got him on the phone. You probably gave them your email address or something, right? So they knew.
Somehow they had my email address. I don't know how they got it.
Maybe you called in and they asked you your name and they know who they're sending these out to or whatever. So they would have reset your password for PayPal at that point with that 6-digit code. That was the forgot my password link.
Right.
Yeah.
So I argued with them over that for some time.
Good for you.
And but I did give it to them eventually because all right. So I went further. This is one step further than I would have done in retrospect. They said, well, for us to override this, we would of course need our vice president to approve it. So they're giving me all the malarkey about they have to have this to establish that handshake of making sure I am who I am.
Right.
So at this point, they now have immediate control of my PayPal account.
Yeah, not good.
Not good, right?
It's getting ugly.
So
you started off so well. You were doing so good.
I did well, but my hackles are up. Yeah. So I'm very suspicious at this point. Now they want to let me know, okay, we want to reverse this charge and any other charges. So now, because they have access to my account, Now, keep in mind, at this point, I still think I'm talking to a real PayPal person.
Yeah,
But-
let's switch back to just the cam.
At this point, because he now has access to my PayPal account, he says, now, did you make an authorized purchase for such and such to
Yeah.
this on this date? And I'm like, yeah, I did. And didn't.
Yeah.
So he's going through my account history. So again, that legitimizes and reinforces the fact that I think I'm talking to a PayPal representative
Because at this point, they've logged into your account.
because they logged into my account.
Yeah.
So the next thing he does, though, this is what really tipped the scales for me, though. He says, okay, well, we need to know what other apps you have on your phone. Okay, so now I'm pretty convinced I'm dealing with
Fraud.
the other side.
Yeah, it's fraud.
Well, I'm not going to show him all my apps on my phone. Why does he need to know that?
Does not.
Then we need to know how this charge got onto your bank account. So we need to have you log in to your bank account. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Well, so first of all, he says you need to go to the App Store and download AnyDesk
Right.
application. Well,
Yeah.
for any legitimate IT person, you know that AnyDesk, like Remote View, is one of these.
It's reasonable. Yeah.
It can be a reasonable application when used by someone you trust.
Right. Right.
I mean, I routinely call IT and the
Yeah.
WA help desk, and
Sure.
they talk me through a problem.
Yep.
So with AnyDesk installed on my phone, I made sure that they're not going to actually have control of the keyboard, but they can actually see what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to show them anything. He wants to know what I have on my bank account.
Yeah,
so I'm like, okay, I go over to my
They'd
Mac.
love to know how much money
Sure,
you have, so
right.
they know
So I go
exactly
over
how
to
much
a different
to take out of your
computer. Now I'm
PayPal.
starting to play my James Veach role. So I go over and I'm logged into my bank. Yep, that's the only PayPal account I have. That was the only charges that were there were legitimate, so I'm good. No, we need to see it. I'm like, oh, I'm seeing it. I'm watching it right now. So about this point, I hang up on them.
Yeah,
I mean, I
good
close
call.
out the call with them, and of course, he freaks out. I mean, I had just made it to what they have like a second level. So like they did the whole first level support. Okay, we're good. AnyDesk is installed. We're now ready to go in for the kill.
Yep.
So he puts me through to some other Middle Eastern speaking person,
Probably the vice president.
probably the vice president, right? And so at that point I said, you don't need to see my bank account information. I argued
Right.
with him for 5 minutes, long enough to maybe keep him from one other hack. And then of course, I've logged out of AnyDesk by now. I'm not giving him any information.
And you've reset your PayPal password now too, right?
I had reset my PayPal password, then I canceled my PayPal account because I
Probably a
don't
good
think I
idea.
really need it.
Probably a
And-
good call, yeah.
And then I called my bank just to be doubly safe,
There you
saying
go.
if you do see anything from PayPal,
There you go.
so I covered all my tracks afterwards. It was a little bit red
Yeah.
faced.
It was close.
Yeah.
It was close,
Yeah.
but I was not
close.
about to give them any information outside of the immediate $899 charge. I mean,
Yeah.
when they start fishing around, okay, what other apps do you have on your phone? That's red flag.
Yeah, so there's a couple things we should pay attention to. Number one, that reset code, 6-digit number,
Don't ever give it.
Never give that to anybody under any circumstances ever. Step one. Step two, be aware that it sounds like there was a lot of urgency once they got you on the call. They want to keep you moving. They
Right.
want to keep escalating the sense of like, oh man, how far have they gotten in my bank account, right? So they're trying to create this sense of catastrophe in you to keep you on the phone and maybe push your judgment aside. So always be aware when something is incredibly urgent and when somebody's pressing you, well, let's get into your bank account too, Mr. Kramer, let's do these things. That's an immediate, there's fraud going on here.
Right.
Like that's not actually a way that normal people would treat you. And then the other one is, don't call the number that's in the message. Be aware that even though it came from PayPal, so you did due diligence there, it could still be populated by what somebody put in there.
Right.
Yeah. Well, that's really good. I'm especially glad it didn't work out. Kind of a close call there. You lost me at the 6-digit thing, but you're a brave guy.
Yep.
Yeah, glad that didn't go any farther. But yeah, what do you think, Glenn?
And I'm especially grateful too. It's just a refresher because when we take the Know Before courses, whether they be incidental because you may have done something wrong and you get assigned them, or just the annual one, it seems like a chore, a task. But it really has changed my filters when I'm looking at my email, because Robert's not kidding. I receive in any number of accounts constant spam check-ins with email, with on my phone. I'm always having to be diligent, and I'm really thankful for that reinforced training that they do, and glad that came to your mind.
Yeah, it's turned us all into skeptics, unfortunately, but it's okay. I think we should be skeptical about things that come in via email. A couple other things Robert told me before we started, that this was to his personal email account.
Correct.
And then I think you said you tried to forward it to me to take a look at, and the WA Office 365
That's
just
exactly
kicked it back
right.
and said, no, forget this.
Yeah, I was going to forward the email in order that we could
Yeah.
put a picture of it in the
Right.
software showcase,
Yep.
Yeah.
and it would not go through. So we have sufficient
Yeah.
firewall at the WA boundaries that it
Excellent.
prevented that email from even going through.
Now, it's not perfect. We do pay for a higher level of email scanning for our Office 365 WA email accounts, which is pretty good. I mean, I see how much junk mail mine filters out, whether it's just spam or whether it's phishing. It does do a really good job, but it's not perfect. Things will still get through. So don't just assume if it made it through that it's definitely legit. It may not be legit. I noticed in my personal email, after we had this conversation, I went into my junk, and about a third of the messages in my junk were something similar. Some were from Apple, some were from PayPal, some were from various other things, but a similar sort of flavor of, here's a payment, here's your invoice, click here to pay it, or click here to cancel it if it was a mistake. And so they want you to click on that cancel button, which will go to their website or whatever. Right. So, but this one's especially tricky because they managed to get that phone number in there and get you on the horn. So this is hopefully helpful for all of you. Remember that there are bad guys out there who want to get into your stuff, whether it's your WA stuff or whether they want to get into your personal stuff. In this case, it would have been your personal stuff. Glad it didn't go that way.
If I could just summarize, like you say, it seems like an annoyance to do the know before training.
Yeah.
But there's a real human cost to this. I have a friend who's an IT professional who deals with scammers and repairing people's lives after they've been identity theft.
Yeah.
And he tells me stories that are just tragic. I mean, people who lose everything, lose their businesses, even take their own lives because of identity theft. So
yeah, it's terrible.
It is a terrible sin that has fallen into our broken world, and so we just need to be, as believers, as diligent as possible.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming in and sharing your story with us, Robert.
You bet.
I am happy to say that you know what time it is, Glenn, right?
I do. It's time to get to know Robert Kramer just a little bit better, and we've prepared some questions for you.
Because it's bullet time. All right. So Robert does not know what these questions are, although if he was watching my screen while we were prepping, he now sees what they are. So, Robert, what is the scariest animal?
Well, I'd have to say probably the hippopotamus. Having just recently seen one on one of our pod trips to Zambia, we were taking a river cruise on the River Zambezi, and it was an evening cruise. Dennis and I were out there, and right up from the water came a hippopotamus, actually 4 or 5 of them.
Oof.
I wanted to reach down and just put my finger in the water to see how cold the water was, and the Zambian guide grabbed my hand and said, "Don't do that.
Don't do it." Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. A very rational choice.
So what do you call the collection of hippopotamus? Is that a pod, a POD?
I think you're right.
Oh, hey,
my God.
what do you
Are
know?
they hippopotami?
Ooh.
I'll show myself out as soon as we're done here. Apples or oranges?
Apples.
Okay. Is that because you put peanut butter on apples?
It's because I like apples.
Okay. Well, that's why I like apples too, so that's good. Would you rather give up your smartphone or your computer?
I'd rather give them both up.
Okay, fair enough. That can be arranged
Once a year, I go out to the mountains in Colorado and give up all technology
for a week or
for a week.
something
Yep.
like that.
It's a blessed feeling.
And
to
you
be
survive?
Digital detox. Yep.
And you make it back?
I have been known to carry a satellite phone just in case.
Just in case, yeah.
He talks to himself. Turn left.
Bring that
For 500
inReach
feet.
device with you. Yeah. All right. And finally, do you have a book recommendation for our folks who are watching? We assume the Bible, so it's not unspiritual if Robert doesn't say the Bible.
Okay. I'll tell you the most recent book that I've been reading,
Sure.
and it is a book that I inherited from my father when he passed away. It's called The Dead Sea Scrolls.
Oh, wow.
And it was published in 1955, and which was interesting because in 1948, of course, Israel became a nation. And really at about that same time, the Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered in the caves of Qumran. So this is kind of an early look at the historical significance of what it meant to have like the complete book of Isaiah and some of the other ancient scripts of the Bible. So it's written as what they call an easy read or a public read, but it's actually quite academic.
Wow.
So that would be one of my choices. A book that's really impacted me in my own spiritual, I guess, journey is a book called No Matter the Cost by Vance Brown. And it's a collection of short stories by some people who I've now gotten to know as friends of some very difficult times of suffering that they've been through in their life. And just counting the cost, not just being a Christian because that's the right thing to do, but even in spite of the difficulties, that God is with us
Wow.
in the most difficult of circumstance.
Perseverance and trust.
Yep. Very good. Well, Robert, it's a joy to have you
Thank
here.
you.
And also, thank you for your work with Pod. We really appreciate your hard work. You've been all over the world now deploying printing systems, and I know that those are being used well. So thanks for the work that you do.
Thank you.
And Mark and I have been talking about some upcoming episodes, so we gladly can say we'll see you next time.
Very soon. All right. Have a great day, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye now.